Welcome back. This channel exists because of your support. Subscribe, hit like, and share your thoughts in the comments. Now let's get into the story. I pulled up to Serenity Springs at 7 o'clock on a Friday evening in late October. The valet took my Tesla keys with a polite nod. I handed him $50 and walked toward the entrance. Through the glass walls, I could see them. 80, maybe 90 people holding champagne and small plates. 8,000 square feet of minimalist luxury. Marble floors. Frosted glass treatment rooms. Everything Kelsey had chosen over 27 months. Every dollar paid for by me. I stepped inside and the energy shifted. People glanced at me, looked away, then looked back. Smiles appeared, the wrong kind. The kind that say we know something you don't. I recognized most faces. Kelsey's aesthetics school friends in designer labels. Whitney Chambers, her business partner. 2 plastic surgeons who'd invested because they liked how Kelsey smiled. Mutual friends from dinner parties who now looked at me like I was a punchline. The spa smelled like lavender and eucalyptus. Soft music played from hidden speakers. I made my way to the refreshment table and ordered sparkling water. That's when I heard it. 2 women stood behind me, close enough that I could smell their perfume. Expensive. Probably Chanel or Tom Ford. One of them had a voice that carried the way some people's do when they're not actually trying to whisper but want to pretend they are. Can you believe it? The temporary husband actually showed up. The second woman laughed. Not a tentative, embarrassed laugh. The confident kind that comes when everyone's in on the same joke and nobody's worried about getting caught. Girl, I would have told him to stay home. This is her night. Her moment. Why does he need to be here? Probably doesn't realize he's already been replaced. More laughter. I didn't turn around, didn't acknowledge them, just poured my sparkling water slowly, watching the bubbles rise in the glass. Picked it up, took a sip, let the carbonation settle on my tongue. Temporary husband. Like I was a splint before the permanent cast. A temporary fix until something better came along. I walked through the treatment rooms, observing equipment I'd paid for. Laser machines worth $140,000. Cryotherapy chamber, $180,000. IV therapy setup, $95,000. All purchased through vendor financing with my name as primary obligor. In the back office, I noticed the lease agreement framed on the wall. 8,000 square feet on Walnut Street. Monthly rent, $42,000. My signature at the bottom. Kelsey's credit score had been 638. Mine was 807. I returned to the main room, set the water aside, and ordered Blanton's bourbon, neat. Kelsey stood near the entrance in a black dress I'd never seen, probably charged to our joint account. Blake Hutchinson stood beside her, hand on her lower back. 29 years old. Cosmetic dermatologist. Harvard Medical School. 185,000 Instagram followers. Her consulting medical director, hired 8 months ago. I watched them interact. His hand sliding lower. Her touching his forearm. Body language screaming intimacy. 11 months since I'd first suspected. 335 days watching my wife build a future with another man using my money. There you are. Kelsey's voice cut through the music. We need to talk. Now. She walked toward the back office without waiting. I followed, bourbon in hand, aware of eyes tracking us. Whispers started before we left the room. The office was small. Desk, 2 chairs, filing cabinet, framed motivational quotes. Kelsey closed the door. I'm glad you came, she said. I wasn't sure you would. 27 months of planning. $9 million in investment. Of course I came. Her jaw tightened. About that. We need to discuss some changes. Changes? She walked to the desk and pulled out a manila envelope from the top drawer. Held it for a moment, like she was reconsidering. Then set it on the desk between us with the kind of deliberate motion that said this moment had been rehearsed. I think we've both known for a while that this marriage ran its course, she said. We've grown in different directions, want different things, and I think it's time we acknowledge that instead of pretending everything's fine. I took another sip of bourbon, let the silence stretch. She wanted me to argue, to look surprised, to give her some kind of emotional reaction she could use to justify what came next. I gave her nothing. I've had my attorney draw up papers, she continued. Everything's fair. You keep your practice and your investment accounts. I keep the spa. We split the house equity 50-50. No drama. No fighting. Just 2 adults being mature about the fact that sometimes relationships don't work out. I set my glass down carefully on the edge of her desk. You're divorcing me at your grand opening. I'm taking control of my narrative, she corrected. This opening represents my independence, my ability to build something meaningful. It's symbolic. A new chapter. Symbolic. She pushed the envelope closer to me. The papers are straightforward. Richard already reviewed the structure. You just need to sign, and we can both move forward with our lives. That made me pause. Richard Graves was my attorney. Estate planning lawyer who'd structured every loan document, every property deed, every legal entity I'd created over the past 15 years. Kelsey actually believed he'd reviewed her divorce papers. She thought Richard worked for both of us, like some kind of neutral family lawyer who owed equal loyalty to each spouse. She had no idea he'd been protecting only my interests for the past 11 months. I opened the envelope and pulled out the papers. Scanned the first few pages. Standard dissolution of marriage. Division of assets according to Pennsylvania law. She kept Serenity Springs Wellness and Medical Aesthetics, LLC. I kept my medical practice and investment accounts. The house we bought 3 years ago would be sold and proceeds split evenly. No alimony, since we both had income-earning capacity. On paper, it looked reasonable. Fair, even. She'd probably shown it to her friends, her mother, her business partner. And they'd all agreed she was being more than generous. What none of them knew was that every dollar in Serenity Springs' accounts, every piece of equipment in these treatment rooms, every custom light fixture and marble tile, all of it was structured as secured debt, not marital assets. Loans, not gifts. With very specific recall provisions that her excitement had made her overlook when she'd signed the documents 27 months ago. I pulled a pen from my jacket pocket. You're absolutely sure this is what you want? Completely certain? Yes. Her voice was firm, confident. I've thought about this for months. It's time. I signed every page without reading them. Quick, efficient strokes that made her visibly relax. She'd expected a fight, had prepared arguments, probably had responses ready for every objection I might raise. My cooperation clearly threw her. I slid the papers back across the desk. There. Congratulations on your new beginning. She picked them up, checking each signature like she couldn't quite believe I'd made it this easy. Thank you for being mature about this. I know it's not easy, but you'll see. This is better for both of us. I'm sure it is. I picked up my bourbon and finished it. Should I stay for the party, or would you prefer I leave? I think it's better if you go. Less awkward for everyone. Of course. I stood, straightening my jacket. One question before I leave. She looked up from the papers. What? Does Blake know you're divorcing me tonight? You're consulting medical director. Does he know he's the reason you're celebrating new beginnings? Her face went pale, actually drained of color in a way I'd only seen a few times in my medical career, usually right before a patient passed out. I don't know what you're talking about, she said. Of course you don't. I walked to the door, then paused with my hand on the handle. Enjoy your evening, Kelsey. Truly, you've earned it. I walked out of that office with my head high and my phone already in my hand. Behind me, I could hear her footsteps. She was following, probably trying to figure out how much I actually knew. Trying to calculate whether that final comment was a lucky guess or something more dangerous. In the main room, conversation didn't stop exactly, but it got quieter, more focused. Heads turned. The temporary husband was leaving. Right on schedule. I handed my valet ticket to the college kid outside. While I waited for my car, I looked back through the glass walls at Serenity Springs. Inside, Kelsey was surrounded by people congratulating her, toasting her success, celebrating her courage. None of them had any idea what was about to happen. The Tesla pulled up. I tipped the valet another 20 and got behind the wheel. Before I pulled out of the parking space, I made the first call. Richard, it's me. She signed. Execute the recall. All of it. Every account, every payment. I want Serenity Springs functionally insolvent by midnight. There was a pause on the other end. Richard Graves didn't pause often. 30 years practicing law had taught him to respond quickly, confidently. But this was the moment. The point of no return. You're certain? He asked. Once I file the emergency motion, there's no walking this back. Completely certain. She handed me divorce papers at her opening party. Time to show her what temporary actually means. Consider it done. I'll confirm once the motions are filed. I hung up and started driving. By the time I reached the first traffic light on Walnut Street, my phone was already buzzing with incoming calls. I smiled and turned the volume off. The drive to my apartment took 20 minutes through Friday evening traffic. I'd moved out of the house 2 months ago. Told Kelsey I needed space to think. Rented a penthouse in Logan Square with floor-to-ceiling windows and a view of the city skyline. 2 bedrooms, minimalist furniture, the kind of place where a successful person lives without needing to prove anything. Inside, I poured myself a Macallan 18 and settled into the Eames chair by the window. The Philadelphia skyline stretched out below me, lights beginning to glow as dusk settled into night. Somewhere out there, Kelsey was probably still accepting congratulations. Still basking in the attention. Still thinking she'd pulled off the perfect exit strategy. My phone sat on the side table, screen lighting up every few seconds. At 8:15, the first confirmation came. Patricia, transfer complete. Operating account balance now $127. All scheduled payments canceled. Payroll system locked. Vendor auto pay disabled. Employee severance fund ready to deploy. Patricia Floyd. My accountant. Forensic specialist who'd spent 15 years managing my investments, tracking every dollar, ensuring nothing got past her scrutiny. When I'd asked her to structure the Serenity Springs financing as recallable debt rather than marital gifts, she'd understood immediately. No questions about why. Just clinical execution of a financial strategy. At 8:30, the second confirmation arrived. Richard, emergency motion filed with family court. All joint accounts frozen pending fraud investigation. Landlord notified of guarantee withdrawal. Documentation attached. I opened the attachment. Saw the legal language I'd reviewed 3 times over the past 2 weeks. Emergency motion to freeze marital assets pending investigation of fraud and misrepresentation. It outlined everything. The loan structure, the recall provisions, the evidence of adultery, the timeline showing Kelsey had solicited investments while planning to divorce her primary financial backer. All perfectly legal. All meticulously documented. At 8:47, the third message came through. Riley, evidence packets delivered electronically to Kelsey's mother, Whitney Chambers, Dr. Raymond Cross, Dr. Angela Torres. Confirmation receipts received. Blake's social media shows he's currently posting from New York City. James Riley, former Philadelphia police detective, now running a private investigation firm that specialized in corporate intelligence and, when necessary, personal matters. I'd hired him 11 months ago. Told him I needed confirmation before I made any decisions. He delivered within 3 weeks, then spent the next 10 months documenting everything. The affair had started on a Thursday. Kelsey came home at 1:30 a.m. with excuses about treatment protocols. She smelled like expensive cologne. Not mine. I kissed her forehead and filed it away. 2 weeks later, I hired James Riley, former Philadelphia detective, private investigator. He delivered evidence in 3 weeks. Photos of Kelsey and Blake at the Four Seasons. Text messages from cloud backups. Kelsey, how much longer do we have to wait? Blake, just until the spa opens. Then we can be public. Kelsey, I hate pretending everything's fine with him. Blake, think of it as a means to an end. He's funding our future. Credit card receipts showed boutique lingerie I never saw her wear. Hotel charges on my trauma shift weekends. Then Riley discovered the pre-drafted divorce papers. Filed at her attorney's office 4 months ago. She'd been planning this, waiting for the right moment, the right venue to make her statement. My phone buzzed again. I glanced at the screen. Text from Kelsey. Why aren't you answering? Need to ask you something about the accounts. I set the phone face down and took another sip of scotch. Let her panic. Every dollar in Serenity Springs was secured debt, not gifts. Loan agreements signed 27 months ago included recall provisions for fraud or activities compromising the lender's interests. Adultery using borrowed funds qualified. The lease was in my name. Equipment financing listed me as primary obligor. Business licenses, insurance, trademark registration, all had my name because banks don't trust 33-year-olds with dreams and no collateral. She'd built on my foundation. And foundations don't belong to the building. My phone buzzed again. 9:18 p.m., call from Kelsey. I ignored it. 9:35 p.m., call from Whitney. Also ignored. 9:41 p.m., text from Kelsey. This isn't funny. Call me back right now. 9:58 p.m. What did you do? The bank is saying there's a problem with the operating account. 10:12 p.m. Greg, there are people depending on this business. Answer your phone. I stood and walked to the window. The city stretched out below, indifferent to the small dramas playing out in individual lives. Somewhere out there, 12 employees were probably still at the opening party, unaware that their paychecks scheduled for tonight wouldn't clear. Vendors were probably checking their invoices, not yet realizing the automatic payments they'd been counting on had been canceled. And Kelsey was probably running through every emotion from confusion to anger to the beginning of real fear. My phone rang. I checked the screen. Barbara, Kelsey's mother. This one, I answered. Hello, Barbara. Greg, honey. Her voice was shaking. Kelsey just called me hysterical. She's saying something about the spa accounts being frozen. Do you know what's happening? I do. Did you receive an email from James Riley about 20 minutes ago? Silence. Then, I haven't opened it yet. What is this about? Open it. Read it. Then call me back if you have questions. But Barbara, I need you to know this first. Your investment is protected. I'm setting up a repayment plan for your $75,000. You'll get every penny back with interest over 36 months. You were the only one who believed in Kelsey for the right reasons. Her breath caught. Greg, what did she do? Read the email. I'm sorry you have to find out this way, but you need to know the truth. I hung up gently. Barbara was a good woman. Widowed 3 years ago when Kelsey's father died of a heart attack. She'd taken the life insurance money, $75,000, and invested it in her daughter's dream. Not because she expected financial returns, because she believed in family. She didn't deserve to lose that money because her daughter had terrible judgment. 10:34 p.m. Text from Kelsey. My mother is crying. What did you send her? 10:47 p.m. Please just talk to me. We can figure this out. 10:58 p.m. I saw the evidence. I'm so sorry, Greg. I should have said something. 11:03 p.m. Blake isn't answering his phone. What did you do to him? That one made me smile. I hadn't done anything to Blake. Hadn't needed to. Riley had simply sent him the same evidence packet that went to the investors. Documentation showing Serenity Springs was bankrupt. That Kelsey was about to lose everything. That the power couple image Blake had been cultivating on Instagram was about to turn into a liability. Blake was an opportunist. A narcissist with a medical degree and good bone structure. He'd been interested in Kelsey because she represented success. A beautiful woman with a luxury business in an expensive neighborhood. The kind of partner who looked good in couples' photos at charity events. Without the money, without the business, without the social status, Kelsey had nothing to offer him. And Blake had plenty of other options. His Instagram demonstrated that clearly. 185,000 followers. Half of them women. Many of them wealthy. 11:17 p.m. Call from unknown number. Probably Blake, trying to reach me from a number I wouldn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail. 11:28 p.m. Text from Kelsey. I'm coming over. We need to talk about this. I checked my watch. 11:30. The pounding on my door would probably start around 11:45. She'd need time to get from Rittenhouse Square to Logan Square. Time to work herself into the right emotional state. Time to decide between anger and desperation as her opening strategy. I poured another scotch and returned to my chair. At 11:43 exactly, the pounding started. Not the doorbell. Fists on wood. Aggressive, desperate, the kind of knocking that says someone's world is falling apart and they need answers immediately. I checked the security camera feed on my phone. Saw Kelsey standing in the hallway. Her cocktail dress was disheveled. Makeup smeared. Hair falling out of whatever styled arrangement she'd had at the party. She looked like someone who'd just watched their entire life implode in the span of 3 hours. I took my time walking to the door. Let her knock. Let her feel what it's like to need something from someone who doesn't owe you anything anymore. When I finally opened it, she didn't wait for an invitation. Just pushed past me into the apartment, spinning around with wild eyes. What did you do? Her voice cracked on the last word. The accounts are empty. Every single account. $9 million just gone. I closed the door and leaned against it, crossing my arms. Gone is inaccurate. Withdrawn is more precise. You can't do that. That's my money. That's the spa's operating capital. Actually, it's my money. Always was. You borrowed it. Signed agreements acknowledging the terms. Now I'm exercising my right to recall the loan. She stared at me like I was speaking another language. What terms? What are you talking about? You invested in my business. I loaned money to a business venture with specific conditions attached. Conditions you violated. Therefore, The loan is being recalled. It's all perfectly legal. Richard can explain the details if you'd like, but I assume you'd rather not pay him $450 an hour for information you should have read before signing. Her face cycled through emotions too quickly to track. Confusion, anger, disbelief, the beginning of real panic. "This is insane," she said. "You're destroying my business because you're upset about the divorce. I'm protecting my investment because the borrower engaged in fraud." "Fraud? What fraud?" I walked past her to the kitchen, poured myself a glass of water, made her stand there processing. "You solicited investment capital while planning to divorce the investor," I said. "You used borrowed funds to finance a personal relationship that compromised your fiduciary responsibilities. You misrepresented your intentions and your commitment to the business venture. Take your pick. Any one of those constitutes breach of contract." "Personal relationship." She stopped. Understanding dawned across her face. "You knew about Blake for 11 months. Every hotel room, every text message, every lie you told while spending my money to build a future with him." Her legs gave out. She sank onto my couch like someone had cut her strings. 11 months, she whispered. "You knew for 11 months and didn't say anything. Why would I? You were busy planning your exit strategy. I was busy planning mine." I leaned against the kitchen counter. "The difference is, mine actually works. This is cruel. You're being deliberately cruel." "No, I'm being strategic. There's a difference. Cruel would have been confronting you, making a scene, giving you the emotional drama you could spin into a victim narrative. This is just business. You wanted a clean separation, remember? No drama, no fighting, just two adults acknowledging things didn't work out." She looked up at me, mascara streaking her cheeks. "There are 12 employees depending on me, vendors who've extended credit. My mother invested her life insurance money. You're not just hurting me. You're destroying innocent people. Your mother will be fine. I've structured a repayment plan that protects her investment completely. She was innocent in this. She believed in her daughter." I paused. "As for the employees and vendors, you should have thought about them before you decided that humiliating me publicly was worth the applause." "Humiliating you? What are you talking about?" "The temporary husband." I let the words hang in the air. "That's what your friends called me tonight. Loud enough for me to hear. You stood 10 feet away and did nothing. That was a message. You wanted everyone to know I was disposable, that you were moving on to bigger and better things." She started to speak, then stopped. "My phone has been ringing for the past 2.5 hours, I continued. "Want to know what's happening right now?" Whitney read the evidence packet. "She knows you lied to her about the affair. Dr. Cross and Dr. Torres know you solicited their investments while planning to divorce your primary financial backer. Your mother knows you've been cheating on me for almost a year." "What about Blake?" Her voice was barely audible. "Blake stopped returning your calls about 90 minutes ago. Right around the time Riley sent him documentation showing Serenity Springs is bankrupt and you're about to lose everything. Funny how quickly love disappears when the money does." She pulled out her phone with shaking hands. "Check something." Her face crumbled. "No," she said. "He wouldn't. We had plans. We were going to. Plans that depended on my money funding your future together. Without that, what exactly does he get? A 33-year-old divorcee with no assets and a failed business. I'm sure that's exactly what a 29-year-old cosmetic dermatologist with 185,000 Instagram followers is looking for." All the fight drained out of her. She sat there on my couch, looking small and broken. "How can you be this cold?" she whispered. "I was your wife. We were married for 7 years. And you threw those 7 years away the first time you checked into a hotel with another man. You made your choice. I'm simply making sure you experience the full consequences of it. What am I supposed to do now? I have nothing. No money. No business. No. Figure it out. The same way I did when I was a medical student with $200,000 in debt. Build something. Earn something. Create something that isn't dependent on using people who trust you." I walked to the door and opened it. "But do it somewhere else. We're done here." She stood slowly, like moving hurt. At the door, she stopped and looked back at me. "I never wanted to hurt you. You wanted to humiliate me at your victory party. You wanted everyone to watch you discard the temporary husband while you moved on to bigger and better things. You wanted the applause more than you cared about the damage." I held her gaze with surgical precision. "Well, congratulations. You got everyone's attention. Now they all get to watch what happens next." She left without another word. I watched through the security camera as she walked down the hallway, shoulders shaking. The picture of devastation in a cocktail dress. I closed the door and returned to my chair by the window. My phone showed 78 missed calls. Messages from people I hadn't spoken to in years, suddenly very concerned about my well-being. I didn't check any of them. Tomorrow morning, Serenity Springs would fail to open. Staff would arrive to lock doors and bounce paychecks. Vendors would call about missed payments. Investors would demand explanations. And Kelsey would have to face every single person she'd celebrated with tonight and explain how spectacularly she'd miscalculated. I raised my glass to the empty apartment, to the quiet victory that nobody would write articles about. Some people build empires. Other people learn why foundations matter. Tonight, Kelsey learned which category she belonged in. On Saturday morning, 12 employees arrived to find the doors locked. Paychecks bounced. Landlord's violation notice posted. 2 called the hospital. My assistant directed them to severance information. Saturday afternoon, Whitney appeared between my surgeries. I handed her the evidence folder. You didn't read the email, did you? I said. She shook her head. I've been afraid to open it. The affair timeline, I said. She solicited investments while planning to divorce her primary backer. Your $100,000 is gone. The business has liabilities exceeding assets by $300,000. Whitney closed the folder. She told us you were controlling, that you couldn't handle her success. Easier than admitting she lied to everyone who trusted her. We should have done more due diligence on her character, Whitney said. Sunday, Philadelphia Magazine posted the story. Careful headline, Rittenhouse Spa shutters before opening. Financial irregularities cited. The comments told the real story. People from the party filling in details about the divorce, the affair, the husband who funded everything. Monday, 3 vendors filed liens. Laser Equipment Company, construction contractor, medical supplies. Richard handled all responses. Blake posted Instagram photos with a new girlfriend in New York, a venture capitalist's daughter. New chapter, new energy. Comments disabled. Monday evening, I met Barbara at Rittenhouse Square. I don't know what to say, she began. I raised her better than this. You did. But people make their own choices as adults. The repayment plan. Greg, you don't have to do this. You invested in your daughter's dream. That's not bad judgment. You'll get your $75,000 back over 36 months at 3%. First payment hits on the 15th. She called yesterday, asked me to co-sign an apartment lease. And I told her no. Some lessons have to be experienced. I'd set up employee severance through Patricia. $180,000 divided among 12 people. $15,000 each. 3 months salary plus benefits. They'd done nothing wrong. They deserved dignity and time to find new jobs. For weeks later, I sat in Richard's office and signed the final divorce papers. Kelsey had signed separately, delivering her signature through her attorney. She couldn't afford to take time off work. The esthetician job she'd just accepted in Bala Sinwood paid by the hour, and missing a shift meant missing rent money. The asset division was exactly as she'd originally proposed in that manila envelope at her opening party. I retained the penthouse, my medical practice, all investment accounts, and the intellectual property rights to Serenity Springs. The trademark, the business plan, the vendor contracts, all of it. Kelsey received her personal belongings, the BMW 3 Series we'd bought her 3 years ago, and the balance in her personal checking account. According to the bank statement attached to the divorce filing, the balance was $1,247. No alimony. We'd both had income-earning capacity during the marriage. The court saw no reason for ongoing support. Her attorney mentioned she's applied to 3 medical spas for esthetician positions, Richard said, reviewing the final documents. The one in Bala Sinwood offered her the job, $22 an hour. Significant lifestyle adjustment, I observed. Indeed. Richard closed the file. Your practice sale to University of Pennsylvania Health System closed this morning, by the way. $38 million. Congratulations. Thank you for everything, Richard. He looked at me over his reading glasses. You handled this better than most people would have. Legally sound. Emotionally controlled. No criminal liability. No civil exposure beyond the standard divorce proceedings. I'm a surgeon, I said. I don't make incisions without a plan. 6 months later, I attended a medical conference at the Lowe's Philadelphia. I was speaking on orthopedic innovations, wearing a Tom Ford suit, feeling confident. The practice sale had given me freedom. Medical device consulting. Angel investing. 3 uncomplicated dates with different women. At the evening reception, I saw Kelsey across the ballroom. She worked in aesthetics company booth, handing out samples. Conservative dress, modest jewelry, hair in a simple ponytail. She looked tired. Older. More serious. Our eyes met for 2 seconds. No recognition. No acknowledgement. I kept walking. 2 weeks later, I was at my apartment when my phone rang. Unknown number. It's me. I heard about your conference position, I said. Congratulations. Thank you. I wanted to apologize. Not because I expect anything. You deserve to hear it. I was wrong about everything. The way I treated you. Thinking success meant leaving behind the person who helped me get there. I appreciate that. Blake is engaged. To a venture capitalist's daughter in Manhattan. I know. She laughed hollowly. Of course you do. You were right about everything. I'm managing a small spa in Manayunk now. Nothing fancy, but it's honest work. No shortcuts. No using people. It'll take years, but maybe earning it is what I needed. Maybe it is. Do you ever think about what we could have been if I hadn't destroyed it? I looked out at the Delaware River. No, because the person I thought you were wouldn't have destroyed it. I was married to someone who didn't exist. Silence. Then quietly, that's fair. Goodbye, Greg. I hope you find someone who deserves what you're willing to give. I hope you become someone who deserves what people are willing to give you. The line went dead. I set the phone down and deleted her number from my contacts. Tomorrow, I had a meeting with a medical device startup looking for angel investment. $12 million for a 30% stake in a company developing artificial cartilage for joint replacement. The technology was promising. The founders were smart, ethical, transparent about risks and projections. Next week, I was speaking at Johns Hopkins. The month after, I was considering a move to Boston. New opportunities, new partnerships, new possibilities. I poured myself a Macallan 18 and walked to the window. The city lights glowed below, indifferent and eternal. Some people view relationships as stepping stones to something better. I'd learned that stepping stones have a way of disappearing when you stop respecting the foundation they provided. Fair trade. I raised my glass to the empty apartment, to the quiet victories nobody writes about, to the future that was just beginning. To new beginnings, I said to no one. The kind you actually earn. The practice was over. The real beginning was just starting. And somewhere in Philadelphia, a woman who'd once called me temporary was learning what permanent consequences actually meant. Dear listeners, that's our ending. If it resonated, subscribe to support the channel. See you next time.